you introduce yourself?
I'm Dominic Patton, the executive editor of Deadline Hollywood, and I've been covering this, well, since a long time ago, since Cassie Ventura first brought in her November 2023 a civil assault and abuse lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs, and now we're here at the Daniel Patrick Moynihan Federal Courthouse.
All right, so your impressions on week one and what we saw and going into this second week.
Well, I think week one is a tale of two stories. You know, it really is. Now, that's traditional. We see in these, the prosecution, which go first, will bring out their story. The defense will follow. We have a kind of a roadmap from their various opening statements. But what's interesting about this is this week really played out as the week of Cassie Ventura for a number of reasons, not the least of which is she's 8.5 months pregnant. So if you don't get her on the star witness on the stand now, you're not going to get her in this. And the prosecution knew that. Most traditionally, she'd come in a couple weeks after some ground had been laid or what have you, but they had to get her on. To that, the defense played hardball right from the beginning. They said right away, Sean Combs commits domestic violence. Sean Combs is a drug dealer. Sean Combs is not a nice person, and we don't expect you, they said to the jury, to like him at the end. But what we do expect you to recognize is the crimes that he has been charged with, he is not guilty of. Sex trafficking, profiteering, prostitution. And now this week has seen the battle of coercion versus consent throughout the entire week. And for the most part, I thought Cassie Ventura was an excellent witness. No small part because she was in Step Up 2 and various other movies. She's an actress as well as a model and performer and singer. So she knew how to play the role that she was playing. But what happened today, at the end of the day, like I guess in a way like any good drama, in the 11th hour, the cliffhanger came, it was revealed that she is in the process of getting a settlement for $10 million from the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. That's the hotel where in 2016, as we've all seen on the video security footage, she was assaulted by a half-naked Combs chasing her down the hall of the hotel, kicking her, beating her, and trying to drag her back to the room, and then a security guard showed up. So the hotel, now it looks like they're paying out this amount of money. That's on top of the $20 million she received in November 2023 after her less than 24-hour-long assault and abuse lawsuit against Combs, which he quickly settled. Throughout the week, we've seen that. That is a very, very different perspective. There's two things that I was really left with from Cassie Ventura, and I just think this is important. One, there is clearly unresolved issues. She talked about PTSD. She talked about going to rehab and therapy. You know, she talks a lot about still loving or having up until recently loving feelings towards Sean Combs. We learned about how she was having an affair with him after they broke up, after he allegedly raped her while she was with her now husband. Now, people's lives, again, if no one's breaking the law, people can do whatever they like. As I think I've said earlier this week, there's nothing against the law about being kinky, and there's nothing about being cruel or controlling, unfortunately. But there is something about violence, and there is something about prostitution, and there is something about taking people's passports, taking their phones, controlling them, confining them, imprisonment, be it of the soul or of the body. That is something Cassie Ventura was doing a great job at establishing until this $10 million was revealed. So I think it's a whole new ballgame. Now, right at the end of this week, we saw Dawn Richards, who was in MTV's Making the Band, which of course was fronted by Diddy. We saw her coming out and saying that she witnessed Ventura being beaten by Diddy in 2009. Of course, she has her own civil lawsuit against Diddy, accusing him of abuse and assault. So that is going to be a big part of next week, if she's allowed back on the stand, because of course, the defense are saying, no. In fact, that is something that they were discussing at the very end after the jury was released. So what's going to happen next week? It's either more of the same or it's a whole new ballgame.
Why wouldn't they let her be on the stand? Why is the defense fighting back so hard? Obviously, she has pretty damning testimony, but do they have a legal leg to stand on?
It really depends. I mean, I think you have the vested interest leg, right? Which is she has an ongoing lawsuit of her own. For her to be involved in something like this, now her lawsuit is a civil lawsuit, this of course is a criminal trial, but for her to be involved in something like this, she is presenting evidence that you could say, well, could actually be good for her, that could actually see her being enriched by it. So I think that's part of their argument here. I also think part of their argument here is she is a witness to this violence, according to her. So if you can get that witness out of this, you can actually give yourself a better chance. But again, it's not the violence so much that she's describing that's going to be important. It's the controlling, it's the intimidating, it's the form of imprisonment, like I said. That does fall under the things like sex trafficking. That does fall under the things like prostitution. That can probably fall under the RICO clauses that are at play here. But again, this is all going to play itself out over 8 to 10 weeks, and you're going to see as many times as it goes one way, it's going to go 2 feet back the other. Because that's the American judicial system.
All right, Dominic Patton from Deadline, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We'll check back in with him as we move on. Thank you.